So usually when we think about a ledger, there's this expectation of perfect cold precision.
Oh, absolutely. It's the language of math.
Exactly. You look at the columns, you line up the debits against the credits, and the numbers just balance out perfectly. An accountant can point to the bottom line and just say, there is the absolute truth. It's clean. It's totally visible.
Right. But when you step into the world of Amanda Park's gritty thriller, The Ledger of Sled and Redemption, that perfectly balanced spreadsheet is, well, it's dragged completely through the mud.
Yeah, we're looking at a ledger where the ink is literal blood, and the bottom line is measured entirely in human lives.
It is the absolute definition of a zero-sum game, and it plays out with these devastating real-world consequences.
Which is exactly why we're so excited to jump into this today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are thrilled to have you with us. Today, our mission is to take you straight into the source material of Park's novel to explore a really high-stakes intersection. We're looking at the exact point where street-level violence collides with white-collar corporate corruption.
Yeah, we are going to examine the anatomy of a conspiracy, the illusion of control, and ultimately the devastating personal cost of vigilante justice.
So let me set the scene for you. Picture a foggy, rainy 3:15 a.m. in North Philadelphia. Hidden on the third floor above this quiet 24-hour laundromat called Kwan's 24-Hour Express is an unmarked steel-reinforced door, and it leads to a place called The Vault.
Which is a high-stakes, invite-only underground gambling room. It's an ecosystem that exists entirely off the grid, insulated by its own brutal set of rules, where hundreds of thousands of dollars in illicit cash are just, changing hands.
Right. And sitting in the shadows down the block from this laundromat, inside a silver sedan with the headlights killed, is our protagonist, a young guy named Malachi.
But this isn't a standard robbery.
No, not at all. Malachi is there to clear the name of his brother, Travis, who is currently sitting in a maximum security prison for a crime he did not commit. Malachi knows that the man running the gambling cage tonight, a guy named Raymond Cruz, is the one who actually framed his brother.
Yeah, and more importantly, Raymond is holding the master ledger, which is the physical proof of who actually moved the illegal weight that Travis took the fall for.
Exactly. So the stakes for Malachi literally couldn't be higher. He desperately needs the cash in that vault just to survive, but he needs that ledger to save his family.
Which leads us to the first major theme of this story, right? The illusion of the perfect system and how human error just completely dismantles it.
Okay, let's unpack this because I found the mechanics of the heist preparation really interesting, but also honestly a bit confusing at first glance.
Oh, how so?
Well, you have a crew of three. Malachi is the strategist. You have Jin, the tech guy, who physically taps into the local junction box outside to put the gambling room's security camera feed on a 15-minute delayed loop.
Right, highly technical.
Yeah. And then you have Terrell, this massive guy who is purely the muscle. But here is where I need you to help me out. Jin executes this incredibly quiet, stealthy hack on the cameras. But then, to actually get inside, Terrell uses a heavy hydraulic breaching tool to literally blow the steel door off its hinges.
Yeah, which is deafening.
Right. So why bother with the quiet tech hack if you were just going to immediately announce your presence with a small explosion?
It seems totally contradictory, right? But it actually comes down to understanding the mechanics of emergency response times. If you just smash a camera or let a digital feed go black, an automated alarm instantly pings a private security dispatcher.
And they route the police.
Exactly. But by looping the camera feed, the dispatcher still sees an empty, quiet hallway. They're completely unaware anything is wrong. Now, yes, blowing the physical door off its hinges is incredibly loud.
I mean, it's a hydraulic charge.
Right, but in a gritty industrial neighborhood at 3:15 in the morning, relying on a random neighbor to wake up, figure out what the noise was, and actually call 911 that buys you time. They traded digital immediacy for physical chaos.
Wow, so they bought themselves a crucial 10-minute window before the police even know a crime is happening.
Exactly. They were managing the response window.
That makes so much sense. But man, the second they breach that door, it is pure chaos. Malachi zeroes in on the cage, shatters the reinforced window with a crowbar, and grabs the master ledger.
But the guard inside the cage, a stocky guy named Marcus Collins, he reaches for a hidden shotgun.
And Terrell doesn't even hesitate. He fires a heavy .45 caliber round, killing the guard instantly.
It just turns into a bloodbath in a matter of seconds. And Raymond Cruz, the house manager who actually framed Malachi's brother, is cornered. He's begging for his life, promising to stay quiet.
But Malachi knows the brutal reality of the world he's operating in. If Raymond lives, the cartel that backs the gambling room finds out who hit them by sunrise.
Yeah, there's no way around it.
So Malachi just says, no witnesses, and Terrell brings the steel crowbar down on Raymond's skull. They pack up $90,000 in cash, grab the ledger, and just run.
What's fascinating here is what this violence actually communicates to the police later. When detectives arrive on the scene, they don't see a professional hit.
Because a professional cleaner is surgical, right?
Exactly. They use suppressed weapons, they minimize the mess, but the detectives look at the sheer overkill here, using a blunt instrument to crush a skull, and they immediately know this was driven by deep personal leverage.
It was emotional.
Very. The crew didn't leave a clean room. They left a message of revenge.
And they also left a fatal piece of evidence. Which brings us to the human flaw. I like to think of this heist like a corporate IT network. You can spend millions of dollars building an impenetrable firewall, setting up two-factor authentication, encrypting all your data.
Right, the perfect system.
Yeah, but the entire system is completely compromised if one employee leaves the Mac admin password written on a sticky note attached to their monitor.
Oh, that's such a good analogy.
Right. And in this story, the sticky note is a dropped lighter.
Well, the adrenaline crash is a very real physiological response. Once the immediate threat is over, the body just dumps all that tension and your fine motor skills degrade.
That is exactly what happens. They get back to the getaway car, the adrenaline starts fading, and Malachi reaches into his pocket for a vape pen to steady his nerves. He has no idea that as he pulls it out, a custom silver Zippo lighter slips out of his pocket and wedges deep under the driver's seat.
Oh, man.
And it's a gift from his sister, deeply engraved with his exact initials, MAV Malachi Austin Vance.
Leaving an engraved piece of personal property at a double homicide is just catastrophic. And it really transitions the story into its second major phase, where the mechanics of the criminal underworld start colliding with forces completely outside of their control.
Because the crew takes their silver sedan to an auto detailing shop on Hunting Park Avenue to strip it and torch it. And I really want you, the listener, to appreciate the irony of what happens next. You have this intense, violent, high-stakes revenge plot, and it gets entirely derailed by the weather.
Yeah, it's just wild.
It is pouring rain in Philadelphia. Jin tries to destroy the car, but the rain actually puts the fire out before it can fully consume the interior.
Which is just the worst luck possible for them.
Seriously. So when the police find the abandoned car just a few blocks away, the forensic techs are able to pull that silver Zippo lighter right out of the seat tracks. Detectives Vance and Lynn run the initials, connect Malachi to his brother's arresting officer, who was Raymond Cruz, and suddenly the police are hunting them.
And while the police are closing in, Malachi is examining the master ledger they stole. He finds a small, gold-embossed seal stamped into the bottom corner of the letter binder. It's a stylized iron anvil with the initials LS.
Which stands for Liberty Structural. And this is where the narrative completely opens up. Malachi realizes that the puppet master behind everything is his own former boss, the CEO of Liberty Structural, a man whose name is also Marcus Collins.
Ironically echoing the name of the guard they literally just killed.
Yeah. The CEO was using Raymond's underground gambling den to launder off-the-books union payoffs. When Malachi's brother, Travis, who worked as an auditor, stumbled onto the laundering, the CEO ordered Raymond to plant 5 kilos of narcotics in Travis's trunk to silence him.
So insidious.
And I want to pause here because I need you to explain the mechanics of this. How does a wealthy corporate CEO use a smoky third-floor gambling den in North Philly to launder money? What is the actual mechanism connecting the boardroom to the streets?
Yeah, it is a brilliant, albeit highly illegal buffer system. In major commercial construction, like what Liberty Structural does, a corrupt CEO sometimes needs to bribe local union bosses to ensure there are no labor strikes or, to get inspectors to look the other way on cheap materials.
Okay, sure.
But a CEO cannot write a corporate check with bribe in the memo line. The money has to be untraceable cash. So the CEO hires phantom contractors, fake LLCs, and pays them for consulting work.
Oh.
Those fake companies cash the checks and bring the dirty cash to the vault. The CEO's proxies gamble the money, intentionally losing large sums to the house. The house, run by Raymond, takes a cut and then pays the rest out to the union bosses as casino winnings.
Wow. So the money goes in dirty and comes out with a perfectly clean alibi?
Exactly.
So the gambling den is essentially an unregulated bank for corporate crime, and Travis, the auditor, noticed the money going to the phantom contractor, so the CEO destroyed his life to protect the machine.
He built a system where he reaped all the financial rewards of the corruption, but offloaded all the physical and legal risk onto disposable blue-collar workers. It's the ultimate insulation.
But that insulation is about to burn down. Because before Malachi can fully process this massive conspiracy, the police arrive at the auto shop. It is a deafening raid.
Yeah, things escalate so fast here.
A hydraulic ram smashes through the garage door. Terrell refuses to surrender. He pulls his weapon and starts firing directly into the ballistic shields of the SWAT team.
Which is an act of pure desperation.
Completely. Jin jumps into a rusted Chevy Blazer sitting on a hydraulic lift. Terrell lays down suppressive fire, jumps into the passenger seat, and Jin slams the truck in reverse, driving it backward entirely through a patched cinder block wall to escape into an alley.
Just insane.
And in the aftermath of that chaos, Detective Vance finds a torn, burnt corner of a ledger page left behind in the shop. It links Raymond to a $25,000 payoff. Now, the police know about the ledger, too. The cartel wants their book back, the police want the murderers, and Malachi wants the CEO.
The power dynamics completely invert here. This is no longer just a street-level dispute over stolen cash. This is a targeted strike on the corporate hierarchy. The streets are coming for the boardroom.
They steal a heavy diesel truck and head straight for the pristine suburbs of Chestnut Hill. Here's where it gets really interesting, because we are watching the target shift from an underground bunker to a literal fortress.
This raises an important question about the nature of violence. Marcus Collins, the CEO, believes his zip code, his private security gates, and his wealth make him untouchable.
Right.
He is perfectly comfortable ordering the destruction of an innocent man's life via paperwork. He commits violence with a pen from the comfort of a walnut-paneled study, but he believes physical violence is something that only happens to other people in other neighborhoods.
Well, Malachi calls him on an encrypted line and demands $300,000 in unmarked cash, plus a notarized confession from the CEO clearing his brother's name. The CEO panics and asks for a week.
But Malachi gives him until midnight.
Yeah, and when the crew arrives at the multi-million-dollar estate in the freezing mist, the infiltration is ruthless. Terrell reaches through the iron bars of the front gate and shatters a security guard named Brandon's nose. Then, Malachi swings his steel crowbar and completely shatters the guard's kneecap just to get the gate open.
They are forcibly dragging the brutal, unforgiving rules of the vault onto the manicured lawns of the suburbs. The CEO's illusion of safety evaporates the moment that gate opens.
They breach the house, shattering the glass French doors, and they corner the CEO in his grand foyer. Collins actually has the money in a duffel bag, but he stalled on the confession. So, the crew zip-ties the CEO, his wife Elena, and their 10-year-old son Elijah to heavy dining chairs in the middle of the room.
So tense.
It is, and I really have to push back on our protagonist here, because this is where the morality of the story completely fractured for me. Up until now, we have been rooting for Malachi. His core motivation, saving his innocent brother from a corrupt system, is noble.
Right, you sympathize with him.
But in this scene, he is actively terrorizing a 10-year-old boy. Terrell is sadistically taunting the child with a knife, while Malachi forces the bleeding, terrified CEO to sign a confession with a black pen.
You have to ask at this point, hasn't Malachi just become the exact same kind of monster he's trying to destroy?
It is the central tragic paradox of vigilante justice. Malachi is using the exact same tools of fear, leverage, and coercion that the corrupt corporate system used against his family. He has convinced himself that the ends justify the means.
Yeah.
But the psychological trauma he's inflicting on that innocent child in the chair is real, and it is permanent. Malachi is rewriting the ledger to save his brother, but he is paying the balance with his own humanity.
And the ink doesn't even have time to dry. The police scanners go crazy, the tactical units have tracked them to the estate, the standoff cannot last, and the physical breach of the house heavily mirrors the legal and moral consequences that are about to crash down on everyone.
Because the police are not there to negotiate a hostage situation, they are there to neutralize a severe armed threat. A hydraulic charge blows the massive front doors off their hinges, triggering a blinding firefight in the foyer. Flashbangs go off. Terrell fires blindly into the smoke but takes a SWAT volley to the shoulder. Jin is wounded by flying shrapnel.
It all just falls apart.
And in that chaotic, deafening moment, Malachi looks at the 10-year-old boy who is convulsing with silent tears in the crossfire. Malachi realizes the absolute reality of the violence he has brought into this home. He dives over the desk, shields the ledger with his body, and surrenders to prevent the child from being caught in the crossfire.
Which brings us to the cold reality of the legal system.
We find Malachi in a cinder block interrogation room with Detective Vance. So what does this all mean? How does the justice system actually process this explosion of vigilante violence?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the resolution revolves entirely around a legal concept called the felony murder rule. Detective Vance actually explains this to Malachi. Under Pennsylvania law, because Malachi actively participated in an armed robbery where lives were lost, specifically Raymond Cruz and the cage guard, he is deemed equally responsible for those murders.
Regardless of who pulled the trigger.
Exactly. It absolutely does not matter that Terrell was the one who actually fired the gun and swung the crowbar.
I always found that rule fascinating. Can you explain the actual legal philosophy behind that? Why charge someone with murder if they didn't commit the act of killing?
The underlying philosophy is strict liability and deterrence. The law dictates that if you choose to participate in an inherently dangerous felony, like an armed robbery or a kidnapping, you assume the risk for anything that happens as a result of that crime.
So you own all the consequences.
Right. The justice system is essentially saying that the deaths are a foreseeable consequence of the dangerous environment you helped create. The goal is to deter people from committing felonies in the first place by drastically raising the stakes for every single accomplice.
And the law does not care about Malachi's noble motivations. It does not allow you to trade 2 dead bodies for a corporate financial ledger. And under the weight of this reality, the crew fractures.
Yeah, self-preservation kicks in.
Jin is terrified and takes a 10 to 20-year plea deal. Terrell, facing the death penalty, completely betrays Malachi, snitching to the district attorney to save himself. Malachi is left holding the entire weight of the consequences.
He goes to court, and he pleads guilty to avoid the death penalty,
Okay.
accepting 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole.
It is the ultimate brutal accounting transaction. Malachi literally traded the rest of his own natural life to buy back his brother's freedom. A life for a life. The ledger is perfectly balanced.
But look at the profound systemic irony of the outcome. The federal government takes that black leather ledger, and they use it to dismantle Liberty Structural.
Right.
The corrupt CEO, Marcus Collins, goes to federal prison. The Conviction Integrity Unit reviews the evidence, vacates the charges against Travis Vance, and he is fully exonerated and released.
Yeah.
The legal system technically worked.
Right, but only because a massive, violent, illegal crime was committed to forcibly extract the evidence. If Malachi had followed the rules and waited on a broken appeals process, his innocent brother would have died in a cage while the CEO continued to build an empire.
Exactly. The system required someone to break it in order to function properly.
Which perfectly sets up the bittersweet epilogue of the book. 6 months later, at State Correctional Institution, Phoenix, this massive concrete fortress, we are in a sterile visitation booth split by bulletproof plexiglass. Malachi is in his blue inmate uniform. But sitting on the other side of the glass is his brother, Travis. Travis is clean, wearing a suit. He tells Malachi he's heading to Atlanta for a legitimate accounting job. Travis asks him why he didn't just wait for the appeal. Malachi tells him the brutal truth: the system was bought and paid for.
The streets didn't give them a choice.
Exactly. And as Malachi walks back to his cell and hears the heavy steel doors lock behind him, he feels peace. He notes that the ledger is closed.
It really highlights how the men in the boardrooms sign the papers. But it is the people on the street level who bleed for it and who ultimately have to sacrifice everything to balance the scales.
It really does. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. We spent all this time talking about a physical, leather-bound black book that Malachi was able to steal to prove the corruption. But think about how this translates to our modern reality. We are rapidly moving toward a world of entirely digital finance, offshore shell companies, and encrypted blockchain ledgers. If this story happened today and that ledger was just a string of code on a decentralized server in another country, physical force wouldn't have helped Malachi at all.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you can't crowbar a crypto wallet.
Exactly. So you have to wonder, is the evolution of digital finance making it impossible for everyday people to ever expose the truth, effectively making blue-collar fall guys permanently disposable in the modern era? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us.